Today we will talk about 10 reasons why people think the World Cup is rigged. 1. The heat. Whenever a heatwave hits a Western country unused to such temperatures, an enterprising TV news crew will almost inevitably attempt to fry an egg on a car bonnet, or perhaps even the pavement. If they try that trick in Qatar, they could open up a cafe selling fried egg sandwiches to passing Brits, for the heat will, as you know by now, be absolutely unbearable. When they pitched for the tournament, the Qatari bid featured all sorts of harebrained schemes, including air conditioning for the grounds and floating, solar clouds, that would shade the pitch, as reported by the Daily Mail. Somewhat inevitably, these turned out to be unworkable, so if the tournament is to be played at the traditional, promised time of year, it will be in heat that averages 105 degrees Fahrenheit, as per Al Jazeera. The effects of making people play the sport in conditions like that should be obvious, but for an example of what might happen, one only has to turn to the Australian Open this year. When play had to be called off on several occasions after temperatures topped that 105 degrees and Britain's Jamie Murray had to be treated for heatstroke, as The Guardian reported. 2. Disruption to the European leagues. To combat the heat problem, the solution at present seems to be switching the tournament to the winter, when temperatures are much more manageable. Of course, this presents a number of problems, not least that the European leagues will have a 2-month chunk taken out of the middle of their season. Some have quite reasonably argued that not all the countries involved operate on an August-May season, so the disruption will only be to a few big and powerful teams that should stop whinging. However, a large portion of the players involved will represent European clubs. UEFA is by far the most represented confederation at the tournament, with 13 of the 32 nations from Europe, and many of the players from other countries have their day jobs there too. For example, 30 of the 49 players called up by Brazil in the last year and 19 of the 23 in the last Argentina squad play for European teams. The bulk of the players at the 2022 World Cup, unless there is a violent power shift in the next 8 years, will play for European sides, and a switch to a winter tournament will mean they have to start a season. Stop halfway through and play what will be for many the most important competition of their careers, then go back and finish their domestic campaigns. 3. Homophobia. Homosexuality is illegal in Qatar. The argument about whether the second biggest sports tournament in the world, after the Olympics, should be held in such a country should really end there. In a civilized world, those sorts of attitudes should not be tolerated, never mind enshrined in law, but obviously, FIFA does not take such concerns particularly seriously if the attitude of their president is anything to go by. Sepp Blatter said in a press conference when asked about what gay people should do if they want to go to Qatar, as per the BBC, that they should refrain from sexual activity. Blatter clarified, or at least attempted to clarify, his statement afterward, but that he felt the need to treat such a serious issue so flippantly speaks to his general attitude. Apart from anything else, by 2022 we will, in all likelihood, have an openly gay international footballer selected to play at the World Cup. While there is currently no top-class player, the number of sportsmen and women revealing their sexuality is increasing, and it seems inevitable that there will be at least one in 8 years' time. 4. Workers. According to Jamie Doward in The Observer, 400 Nepalese migrant workers have died in construction in Qatar since the World Cup bid was won. That would be bad enough, but the Nepalese only comprise around 20% of the workforce, often forced to operate in dreadful conditions. It's impossible to disagree. The Qatar 2022 Organizing Committee has issued a charter apparently guaranteeing the safety of its workers, but one doubts whether the situation will improve dramatically, and the damage has surely already been done. This will be a World Cup built on blood. 5. Infrastructure. This is a country with no real football history, so it is hardly a surprise that there is currently no real infrastructure that can cope with an event the size of the World Cup. It will cost something in the region of $220 billion, £138 million, as reported by ESPN, to build the stadia, hotels, and assorted other parts of infrastructure required. By way of comparison, it cost $3.5 billion to prepare South Africa for the 2010 tournament. Just imagine for a second what that money could be better spent on. It's essentially a futile exercise because it's unlikely that, should the World Cup be taken away from Qatar tomorrow, $220 billion will suddenly be spent on the grassroots of football. Or given to charity, but it nonetheless seems like an appalling waste of money. Here's the real kicker about how lacking in infrastructure Qatar currently is. The city scheduled to host the final, Lusail City, doesn't actually exist yet. They're having to build an entirely new city, about 15 kilometers north of Doha, to accommodate the tournament. If it was in the plot of a film, it would be laughed off as utterly implausible. 6. It can be done. The previous 5 arguments are all theoretical. Nothing will or can happen without FIFA's action, but importantly, they can move the World Cup. There is still time. With 8 years remaining, a country with more established infrastructure can take over with the minimum of fuss, removing all of the other problems listed in this article. 7. Roberto Baggio's missed penalty in the 1994 FIFA World Cup final was crucial. The 1994 FIFA World Cup was the best in history, but the final match wasn't that great. While Brazil had better chances, it looked like they couldn't score in a million years against the tough Italian defense with Baresi, Maldini, and Costacurta. This meant that a penalty shootout was needed to decide the winner, and Brazil was lucky to triumph, 3-2. As we all remember, Roberto Baggio took the penalty and shot over the bar as Brazilians started celebrating. Nonetheless, what everyone seems to forget is that even if Baggio has scored, Italy would probably still lose. That's because he opened the 5th series to tie the result. Meaning that Brazilians would only need to score from their following penalty to win it. Of course, they could miss it, but putting so much blame on Baggio is wrong, as 2 other Italian players also failed to score from the spot. 8. The United States undoubtedly won 3rd place in the 1930 FIFA World Cup. To this day, the 1930 FIFA World Cup was the most successful for U.S. soccer. That year, the team reached the semifinals, eventually losing to Argentina 6-1. Uruguay beat Yugoslavia by the same result in the other match, but there wasn't an official 3rd place decider. That often brought confusion about who was 3rd in the end, and the truth is we're not sure it's the US national team. In 1984, FIFA revealed there was a 3rd place match, which Yugoslavia won, 3-1. However, there were still reports that this game never happened. Another argument for Yugoslavia was that they were officially ranked 3rd, as they lost to future champions, Uruguay. Only much later, FIFA ranked the USA 3rd, based on a better goal difference. Interestingly, both teams received bronze medals, so to us, they shared 3rd place. C. Everyone can be a winner. 9. South Korea won 2 fixed matches in the 2002 FIFA World Cup. We already named the 2002 FIFA World Cup the worst in history due to many controversies. Even though decades have passed, no one has forgotten some of the most harmful refereeings ever. Of course, we're talking about South Korea, which eliminated Italy and Spain after 2 scandalous matches. However, many have forgotten about another South Korean game that was also very suspicious. 10. Brazil and Uruguay played in the final of the 1950 FIFA World Cup. The first FIFA World Cup after World War II was a pretty strange competition that gave us some weird records. Many nations qualified and then gave up, so one of the groups had only 2 instead of 4 teams. This meant that Uruguay had to win a single game against a weak Bolivia to qualify among the best 4 teams. While not many people know about this, everyone is aware of Uruguay defeating hosts Brazil in the final, and becoming the FIFA World Cup winner in front of 200,000 people. Yet, the thing is, this massive upset wasn't the final. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.